The public input portion of the hearing, starting in the afternoon with Lisa Riordan. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Riordan. I own a home in the village area of Captiva and live there approximately 8 months a year. I also owned a condo at South Seas Bayside Villas prior to purchasing my home in the village. I was a member of the Bayside Villas Condo Board Association for 8 years and served as its president for 6 years. I am a member of the Captiva Civic Association, which I will refer to as CCA throughout my testimony. I currently serve on the CCA Board of Governors and have since 2015. I currently serve as its president, and I am chair of the Land Use Committee. I will have a number of exhibits that I would refer to, so if I could present them to you.
You want to walk me through what they are?
Sure.
The first.
They are the charter for the Captiva Civic Association.
Okay, let me have that. I'll mark it as you go.
Okay.
This is the.
Ignore the exhibit number that was used in another. See.
All right. So this is.
This is the charter for the Captiva Civic Association. I have copies for you, Ms. Montgomery, and also for Travis Gaff as
Okay,
well.
this is for Riordan, Exhibit 1.
I have a copy of the CCA membership list.
Okay, we'll call that Riordan Exhibit 2, CCA membership list.
Yes, and you should have that in that. It's
Oh, is this whole bundle, the whole thing?
yes.
Okay, thank you. And the next?
The next is the CCA mission statement, together with the CCA mission objectives and the CCA land use policy.
Okay, this is Riordan Exhibit 3, and it's a composite exhibit. These stickers are going to be the death of me. Okay. And this,
Then I have a heavy traffic advisory dated February 25, 2025, from the City of Sanibel.
and that'll be Riordan Exhibit 4.
Yes.
And is that everything?
I have a number, actually, 84 agent authorization forms, most of which have personal statements attached, but I'll wait till the end of my presentation. to
Okay.
deal with them, if that works.
Okay, and you're speaking on their behalf?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be your Exhibit 5,
I will present the whole document to you.
and that's also Lisa. And that's also a composite, because I imagine it's several pages, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Many pages.
And you'll submit that at the end, you say?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have the tab ready when you submit it.
Thank you.
Yes, please do. And thank you for having extra copies.
My pleasure. CCA is a not-for-profit corporation on Captiva. It was founded in 1936, incorporated in 1959, for the benefit of the citizens of Captiva. It built its first Civic Hall building in 1961. CCA is a membership organization with a 2024 membership of approximately 430 individuals and commerce members. Our charter and membership list have been entered as exhibits. CCA's voting members live, own property, or own or work at a business or organization on Captiva. A substantial number of Captiva's members live or own property on, adjacent to, or close to the 120 acres involved in the rezoning application. Focusing only on our Captiva members, approximately 49 CCA members own property within South Seas. Members own at Bayside Villas, South Seas Villas, formerly known as the Tennis Villas, Land's End Village, Beach Villas, Beach Cottages, Gulf Homes, Marina Villas, and timeshare properties, as well as private homes that are close to the applicant's 120 acres. Other CCA members own property distributed broadly throughout Captiva. Approximately 150 CCA members own property in the village area of Captiva, within a quarter to 1 mile from South Seas.
Excuse me, can you help me understand what the village area is of
Sure.
Captiva, because I'm not familiar?
Sure, if you are on Captiva, people refer to it in 3 different areas. The area when you first come on Captiva from Blind Pass is the estate area in the zoning. Some people refer to that as the Gold Coast. When you come all the way down Captiva Drive, you get to the first curve. As you go around that curve, that area to the next curve is called the Tween Waters stretch, and that's because Tween Waters sits smack dab in the middle.
Okay.
When you come around that curve, you're then entering into the village area.
All right.
Okay? And that takes you up to South Seas.
Okay, so is the Andy Rossi Lane corridor part of the village area?
Yes, that's where the only stop sign in Captiva is located, on our village and on
Thank
Andy
you
Ross.
for that clarification.
Okay. So I said approximately 150 members own property in the village area within a quarter to 1 mile of South Seas, and approximately 75 members own property on Captiva Drive, located anywhere from 1 to 2.5 miles from the resort. Additionally, CCA has 10 commerce business members on Captiva in the village area. CCA owns and operates the Captiva Civic Center. It owns the Captiva Library Building, which is leased to the county and houses the Captiva Memorial Library, which provides library services for Captiva. CCA also owns a historic single-family home, which it leases to the Lee County Sheriff's Department as a residence for a deputy sheriff and his family. CCA and its Civic Center play a major role in the Captiva community. The Civic Center is the location used for social events, educational and music programs, art shows, county library programs, HOA, condo, and community meetings, and the Captiva Community Panel and the Captiva Erosion Prevention District hold their meetings there. In times of emergency, such as after a hurricane, CCA Civic Center has a generator and is able to provide air conditioning, Starlink access, shower and laundry facilities, and food and water for Captiva residents, business people, and first responders. We most recently provided the community with access to these services after Hurricane Milton. CCA's mission is simple: the preservation of the quality of life, ambience, and environmental integrity of a unique barrier island community. We have mission objectives which further describe our work, including working to provide information relevant to the issues of development density, island environmental integrity, and our community's quality of life. We work to ensure adequate evacuation capability and to prevent increasing road congestion. CCA has a standing land use committee authorized to monitor land use decisions that impact Captiva's environment and the quality of life. CCA's land use policy provides that CCA, in accordance with its mission, shall work with governmental authorities, property owners, and other associations to maintain the strict limits on density and height as currently stated in the Lee County Comprehensive Plan, and to oppose any exceptions sought through the variance process, and also to strictly enforce zoning and other regulations, including those which have the effect of limiting traffic and excessive noise. I've also provided you with an exhibit of our mission statement, the mission objectives, and the CCA land use policy. CCA takes this responsibility very seriously, and over the past 70 years has made its position known on numerous proposals affecting our community, and when necessary, has brought legal action on behalf of its members to accomplish its mission and purpose. Among those actions is a lawsuit that was settled in 2003 between Lee County and CCA. It confirmed the cap of 912 residential and hotel units on South Seas. That settlement states, quote, "The total number of dwelling units on South Seas Resort is limited to 912. No building permits will be issued by county for dwelling units within South Seas Resort that will cause that number to be exceeded at any time," close quotes. Prior to that, CCA successfully proposed and advocated for the 1982 Lee County Ordinance that amended the CCA section of the Land Development Code to downzone permitted development on the rest of Captiva to 3 units per acre for both dwelling units and hotel rooms, which remains in effect today. When the ordinance changes that have led us to this zoning hearing were introduced in 2023, there was an immediate outcry from the Captiva and Sanibel communities that extended far beyond our CCA membership. The community reaction led to the creation of Protect Captiva, a coalition of thousands of island residents, businesses, community organizations, and visitors who are opposed to the changes. That coalition has continued to grow in opposition to the applicant's proposal before you. These are people who know this unique community and the effect these changes will have on it. Madam Hearing Officer, the request before you directly affects CCA and its members and should be denied. Our members are affected, one, by increasing the density and heights in buildings near their homes and by changing the character of the island from low density and low height buildings. Captivans pride themselves on having an island where many trees are higher than the buildings. This unique character of Captiva is why people from all over the world come to visit here. They affect us, too, by increasing the use of the already congested and oft-time dangerous conditions on Captiva Drive and Andy Rossi Lane in the village, thereby reducing public safety. The applicant suggests that its resort will become exclusive with very little integration with the Captiva community. That is just not accurate. Anyone who lives on Captiva knows that. South Seas visitors constantly use their cars and rental golf carts to visit the village, its shops and restaurants. Families and children and teens from South Seas are constantly on bicycles, riding into the village as well as throughout the rest of the community. And the community has always welcomed them to do so. Many visit the library, the historic chapel by the sea, and our historic cemetery. And this new notion of separation and exclusivity is not only unlikely and unrealistic, it's just not what visitors to our island do. Visitors come to Captiva and South Seas to see more than South Seas. And trust me, visitors to South Seas are going to continue to visit with their cars and/or golf carts to the Ding Darling Wildlife Refuge, the Bailey Matthews Shell Museum and Aquarium, They're going to take Captiva cruises, partake in parasailing off Andy Rossi Lane and other attractions, as well as visit the world-famous restaurants Mucky Duck and the Bubble Room, as well as the other wonderful shops and restaurants on Sanibel and Captiva. How will all these additional cars, bikes, and golf carts fit on our one lane in each direction roads without an increased threat to public safety? We are also affected because there are no sidewalks on Captiva. Our single-lane road is an area where cars, bikes, golf carts, baby strollers, and pedestrians, both adults and children, all converge to either drive or walk to their destinations. We'll be affected because the area on the south end of the resort, where they want to put one of their hotels, is already a very congested area. South Sea's retail shops are on one side of the road there. The Captiva post office is there and is almost directly across the road from the South Sea's entrance, where they propose a hotel will be located. There is no home or business mail delivery on Captiva. Everyone has a post office box assigned to them at the post office. So to get your mail every day, one must either walk or drive to the post office. Is anyone looking at the effect a 210-unit hotel at that location will have on the vehicular and pedestrian traffic there? Again, it's an increased threat to public safety. These proposed changes will affect us by increasing the parking issues on the island. There is no on-street parking on Captiva. As I stated earlier, many visitors to South Seas do not stay inside the resort throughout their visit. They rent golf carts, walk, or take their own cars into the village areas to go to shops and restaurants. Where are these additional golf carts and cars going to park? These proposed changes will also affect CCA's members by increasing demands on the public services provided by police and fire departments. At previous hearings before the county commissioners, we heard testimony that our fire department will need a new ladder truck at the cost of an approximately $1.5 million to reach the new heights of buildings being proposed. The proposed changes also threaten public safety by increasing evacuation times and with greater amounts of traffic to and from the island. Drive times getting off the island and over the Sanibel Causeway exceed 1 hour and 45 minutes many days without an emergency and without added traffic from increased numbers of units on the resort. Let me share with you, Madam Hearing Officer, how Captiva residents and CCA members manage the traffic and related public safety issues on the island today, and why density or intensity of use cannot be increased. When needing to go off island, if it is at all possible, Captiva and Sanibel residents go in the morning. One cannot leave Captiva after 2 p.m. in the afternoon without sitting for over an hour in stop-and-go traffic for several miles. Coming onto the island is the reverse. You try to avoid the morning because the backup getting onto the island is the same, more than 1 hour wait, as getting off is in the afternoon. CCA's director lives in Iona, not far from the Sanibel Causeway. This past Tuesday, it took her almost 2 hours to get home, a distance of 22 miles. This is not unusual. It's just Tuesday afternoon on Captiva and Sanibel. The city of Sanibel regularly issues heavy traffic advisories to the community. This past Monday, February 25th's advisory states in part, and I quote, "The city of Sanibel is issuing a heavy traffic advisory for every afternoon and early evening this week so residents can plan their travel accordingly." unquote. It further states, quote, "We expect heavy vehicular traffic on island each morning this week. Motorists should expect substantial traffic delays exiting the island every day this week and into the early evening." I have provided you with a copy of that most recent advisory. How is adding additional vehicles to the roads not a public safety threat? In the event of an emergency, a need to get to a hospital, which many residents worry about, how do we safely get off the island with even more vehicles on our single-lane road? This serious traffic situation and threat to public safety is already very difficult for island employers and their employees who live off-island. You've heard employers appearing here earlier in the hearing share some of that information with you. CCA is one such employer. We have had employees indicate that they would be looking for work off-island in the future because of the traffic situation and the safety problems it creates. And we are not alone. Employers on the islands often pay premium rates to try to keep employees. To add additional vehicles would also make evacuation, which may not have been thought about not too long ago, but after 3 hurricanes in 2 years is now on everybody's mind. It would make it that much more dangerous and difficult. Why would anyone want to do that? Madam Hearing Officer, you've said that you plan a site visit to South Seas. I ask you, when you make that site visit to South Seas, please go during the week and drive on island in the morning and leave Captiva after 3 p.m. so you can understand what we already face every day. It is very hard for many to fathom that we are not exaggerating this situation. So please go at these times so that you know why this is of such a serious concern to the community. As I have listened to the presentations made by the applicants through their attorneys and expert witnesses, and also the presentation by county staff, and I hope what you will consider, Madam Hearing Officer, is what appears to me to be missing. What is missing is common sense. The applicant claims there is no historical development pattern on South Seas. After listening to what the history of development has been, both inside and outside the gate of South Seas, how can one even question that the historical development pattern on South Seas is not 3 units per acre? It has been that way for over 50 years and followed by previous owners. But now we're all being told to ignore that history because the new owners say so. What does 50 years of history mean if not the historical development pattern? It seems like there's no common sense in that interpretation. We just don't understand what the county could be thinking. And how does one eliminate or deviate from the required buffers between the new water park and the South Seas Villas, formerly known as tennis villas? How is that possible? There's no common sense in not putting a buffer between any residential building and a water park. The required buffers that are in the Lee County Code are there for a reason. I heard the applicant argue that there were tennis courts at that location before, and yes, there were. But again, it doesn't take much common sense to know that the noise generated from a water park with pools and slides and everything that makes a water park is going to be much greater than the noise at the old tennis courts. And at what point do the non-Timbers owners inside the gates of South Seas and the Captiva community get the same consideration as Timbers has received? How did the county possibly approve the Beach House restaurant in its current location? How was there no common sense applied when the building plans and DOs were issued to place that restaurant smack dab on the edge of a 30-foot access easement without any room for the required and necessary buffer between the restaurant and the access easement? And speaking of that restaurant, again, common sense appears to have been totally missing when approvals were given which allowed the restaurant to be built so close to Plantation Road that the corner of the roof actually hangs over the road. How did that get past the first county staff person to review it? How is that possible? No one else is permitted to build a building with a roof hanging over the road. Why is it okay for this developer to do so? And why is that building still standing there? And how do county staff recommend an application where there may not be enough sewer availability for the increased development on a barrier island? Again, I ask, how is that possible? Where is the common sense that should go along with all of these decisions? To me, it seems to be very seriously lacking. And I also have to ask, why is this applicant applying for a deviation to fly a 96 square foot flag at the entrance to the resort? That very large flag is already there and has been there for weeks. It doesn't matter to the applicant that they don't have any agreement from the county to do so. They've already put it in place without any regard for what they are permitted or not permitted to do. In closing, Madam Hearing Officer, I want to reiterate that our islands have been devastated by 3 hurricanes in 2 years. The congestion and public safety issues on our single-lane road are beyond serious. We have been lucky so far, but it's only a matter of time before there is a deadly consequence to not being able to get off the island in the event of an emergency, be it an evacuation due to a coming storm or a fire or being delayed in getting to a hospital or a doctor. Putting more units, cars, and golf carts on Captiva now, after 3 hurricanes in 2 years, and understanding the serious consequences of doing so, not only defies common sense, it will put people's lives at risk in case of an evacuation. Someone in this process has to use common sense and do the right thing. This application must be denied for all of these reasons. I thank you very much, Madam Hearing Officer, for having me speak. Additionally, I have 84 agent authorization forms, all notarized, naming me as agent. 72 of those people have also provided personal statements for the record. And while understanding that time is a concern for everyone, I feel that I must read from some of these statements, since these people took the time to write them, go get a form notarized and send it to me to do so. It's not my intention to read all of them, certainly not the ones that are repeating what people have said previously, but I would at the very least also like to read the names of these people into the record. I will also provide you and the court reporter and the county a copy of the list of everybody's names.
Okay, this list of individuals and their personal statements will be reordered in composite exhibit number 5. I will read the statements that are attached to the affidavits. I just want you to understand that I can give them only so much weight because that testimony is not subject to cross-examination. But I will read them, and I do read all the things that get submitted.
This is the list of everyone's names. There are 2 names that are crossed off. Can you hear me?
Okay. Okay, 2 names have been crossed off this list.
That's because both of those gentlemen are now available to speak personally, so I'm no longer going to serve as their agent.
Understood. She spoke very clearly, though. She was articulate, yeah.
The first one is, I've done these alphabetically to make it easier. The first one is Catherine Allen, who owns at South Seas Club and South Seas Cottages in South Seas. She speaks to the increase in density and building heights in violation and the understandings, it violates the understandings that she had regarding density and building heights and open space and property rights when she purchased. There are a number that also make that claim. Second one is Edward Angel. He did not have a personal statement. Larry Bearfield, who lives on Leica Lane, again in the Village, also speaks to density, building heights, and how his concern is dramatically increasing evacuation times. Michael Bennett is the owner of a property on Captiva Drive in the area that I referred to as the Tween Water Stretch. He has asked me if I could read this. He says, as a property owner and resident, I'm very concerned that added density will obviously strain critical resources such as utilities, fire, police, etc. I'm very concerned that added traffic will diminish our safety and quality of life and negatively impact property values. I am concerned that noise from a water park next to Captiva Drive will be a nuisance. I also believe that added density is an unnecessary risk, especially when there's no benefit to the current community. Timber's approach is to provide absolutely everything to their guests, from food to golf carts, as well as create a virtual rental monopoly against property owners inside their gates. This is their right as a business, but creates no added value or benefit for businesses on Captiva and Sanibel, and certainly none for the residents. Timbers knew the existing limitations for densities, what they were when they purchased the property. They should move forward under those restrictions rather than impose further risk and strain on the community. Tony Berrigan, who lives on South Seas,
Is that
also
Troy?
speaks
Troy or Tony?
I'm sorry, Troy Berrigan, lives on South Seas and speaks to density and the effects. Also, Mark, it's hard to read some of this writing, Bodenheim also lives on South Seas, and in part his statement says the rezoning application increases density and building heights in violation of the Lee Plan, which was enforced for over 40 years, and then he goes on to speak on that issue. Michael and Patricia Boris, who own at Sunset Captiva, which is in the Village area. It's a condominium and home complex right just to the south of Andy Rossi Lane. They both speak to increased density, building heights, worrying about the expense of the detriment to the environment, water quality, and wildlife habitat. Lynn Brescia does not have a statement. Denise Brunkow also owns at South Seas. She repeats the concerns of density and promises that were made to be able to use the amenities when she purchased her property. The same with the next person, Catherine Buczek, also lives on South Seas and makes that same claim, as does Dennis Buczek, also owning on South Seas. Donald Stott Carr lives on South Seas and again makes those similar types of concerns. Anne Cashin, and there's an I missing, her name is Cashine, my typo, sorry. She has a timeshare on South Seas. She is a 45-year visitor to Captiva and has owned on South Seas for many of those years and is strongly opposed. The next one, Wendy Childress, does not have a statement, nor does the next two, Frank and Mary Serino. For everyone who does not have a statement, I will just voice their opposition. The next person, John Clappison, also owns on South Seas. He talks about some of the very same issues, as does James Coffrin, who also lives at South Seas, as well as Stanley Creel and Beth Crimmins, who also lives at South Seas, as does Samuel Dillard and Lisa Doria. David and Kathy Ferrari do not have a personal statement. Pamela Gibney also lives at South Seas, or owns property at South Seas, and makes the same concerns known about what they were promised when they bought for use of amenities, as well as having low density and low heights in their community. Robert Gillette also owns a tennis villas on South Seas. He is concerned as well on some of the same things that the other folks at South Seas have expressed concern about, as is Ruth Gorman, who is a timeshare owner of 8 weeks a year. She's concerned about the increased development at the expense of the environment, including water quality, wildlife habitat, and undermining the quality of life and making travel on the islands for residents and employees of the island and guests difficult, burdensome, and unsafe. Julia Grant does not have a personal statement. Julia lives in the village on Whiteman Lane, so about a half a mile from the resort. Ted Hilton also owns a timeshare on the resort, talks about increased evacuation times on the one road in and out in case of a hurricane, and threatens public safety on both the islands. As does Anthony Hufford, who also has a similar statement. He has resided or owned property in the Fort Myers area, but he also owns a timeshare on Captiva at the Plantation Club, and he says it violates longstanding understandings concerning building density and height, open space, and property rights relied upon when I purchased the property. The next person, and I hope I don't butcher her name, Stacy Cacon, yes. She owns property at the cottages at Plantation Beach Club. She's been an owner with her husband since 1992. That property is on South Seas. She speaks to the density and building heights concern. Eugene Kushner also speaks to the same. Jeffrey Cupper is an owner of property at the Beach Club on South Seas, also has those similar concerns, as does Michael Cruz. I misspoke. Jeffrey Cooper does not live on South Seas. He lives at 53 Sunset on Captiva, which is located in the village. Mary Patricia Ladner is the owner of more than one piece of property out at South Seas. She speaks to zoning and height concerns and violations and public safety. The next person, Susan Lenfeste, also owns out at South Seas and speaks to the increase of traffic and making travel unsafe and undermining the quality of life on the island. Robert Lesser owns a number of weeks timeshares on South Seas and speaks to the same issues as the previous person. Michael Lavach is an owner of property on Sanibel on Joe Wood Drive. He says the rezoning application violates the clear and unambiguous terms of the Lee Plan, which requires the county to maintain the historic development pattern on Captiva, including density and building heights. He also talks about increased traffic on both Sanibel and Captiva. Next one is Carol and Robert Lloyd. It's notarized together, and also their statement is together. Mr. Lloyd and Mrs. Lloyd speak in favor of the position of CCA in this matter. He says the zoning application violates the understanding towards density, building heights, open space, and property rights. And then he speaks to the circuit court decision, and he's also questioning the wastewater utility services that are available, and refers to the letter from FGUA dated May 23rd, 2023, and for many reasons, including the safety of the people who reside in or visit Captiva, as well as many inaccuracy in the Lee County staff statements. And in his opinion, he is opposed, as his wife, Carol. Next one, Janelle Martin also owns a timeshare at South Seas. She is concerned about the one road on and off the island, increased density, high evacuation, and damage to the natural beauty and ecology of Captiva. Ralph Martinez also owns at South Seas Resort. He is opposed, again, refers to increasing density and heights. John Mason of Old Lodge Lane and Captiva, which is in the village, does not have a statement, but he has expressed to me how he is so opposed to this. Edward McDonald is an owner of real property on North Captiva, and he has not provided a statement but is opposed. David McLennan is a timeshare owner. His objections are similar to ones I've already expressed, as is the co-owner Shirley McLennan of that property. Robin Miller is an owner on Sanibel, and she is opposed to the increases. She's concerned, she's a full-time resident. She's concerned in the decrease in water quality, possible water scarcity, destruction of habitat, and deadly harm to wildlife, public safety threats of increased traffic making evacuations more difficult, and thereby reducing the general quality of life on the islands. The next one is John Missouri. He's an owner of real property on Sanibel on Coquina Drive. He says we are against the increasing residential units. We are, and they are comfortable with me speaking against on their behalf. Richard Montanez is the next. He owns property at the cottages at South Seas and speaks of density and height issues. The next person, Robert Moore, is a resident at Wild Lime Drive in Sanibel. He's asked me to read this to you. My name is Bob Moore. I am a Sanibel resident. I also serve as co-chair of SanCap Resilience. SanCap Resilience is a coalition of citizens and 15 local organizations based in both Captiva and Sanibel, established on the heels of Hurricane Ian. Its mission is to lead a community-based initiative to build resilience and protect the vibrancy of our sanctuary islands long into the future. The purpose for the founding of this group was to support citizens and businesses to rebuild in ways that increase resilience to further storm and other climate-driven events, and to complement government-led resilient efforts by providing community-based feedback to guide planning. I'm here to ask that you deny the Timbers zoning motion for South Seas Resort and to direct them to build within the 912 unit limit they knew was present when they purchased the property. Increasing density on a fragile barrier island simply does not make sense for resilience or community safety. The proposed changes are also in violation of the Lee Plan, which requires the county to maintain the historic development pattern. The proposed changes would increase vulnerability to storm damage, stress on critical infrastructure, and water quality and health, making it difficult, if not impossible, to effectively manage runoff waste on Captiva. Jeff Morgan is an owner of a private home on South Seas. He and his wife own the home there and have since Jeff was a little boy. He's been a resident on the resort for more than 50 years. He objects to the zoning application regarding his concern for density and building height, violating the Lee Plan, again, not maintaining the historic development pattern. He's concerned about the traffic and public safety as well. Donna Peak expresses those same concerns. She owns at South Seas as well. Eric Ponder is a resident of Sanibel. He speaks to concerns of the density and building heights violating the Lee Plan. He's concerned about increase in evacuation times on the one road and the detriment to the public safety as a result of increased numbers of vehicles. John Potts also owns at South Seas, and he, together with his wife Karen, have the same concerns about violations to the Lee County Plan. Pam Rosen is an owner of real property on Old Lodge Lane in Captiva, which is in the village. She is concerned about the change that will come to Captiva as a result of this, and would like the hearing examiner and the county to maintain what we have today. Douglas Reichman is an owner on Seaspray Lane in Sanibel. Doug has expressed concern on density, building heights, violation of the Lee Plan, as has been stated previously. Natalie Pyle is an owner of real property in the village on Leica Lane in Captiva, and she has asked that I read at least part of this. My name is Natalie Pyle. My husband and I own a home on Leica Lane where we have lived full-time for 22 years. I can see the lights of the south end of South Seas Island Resort from my bedroom windows. I have actively participated in community planning for Captiva for most of the last 2 decades as a member of the Captiva Community Panel and an engaged citizen. The rezoning under consideration for South Seas Island Resort is a slap in the face to all of us who have participated in good faith in planning efforts for Captiva. The proposed rezoning for South Seas Island Resorts is clearly counter to the Lee Plan and the Land Development Code that members of our community labored with county staff to develop and see adopted by the BOCC. Compelling testimony has been presented as to the detrimental impact the rezoning being considered would have on the fragile Captiva ecosystem, traffic, and historic low-density nature of our island. Here are my concerns about the anticipated ramifications of increased density at South Seas, especially at the south end of the resort near the entrance. An increased number of resort guests coming and going on foot, by golf cart or car to the village, especially at the dangerous 90-degree corner just outside the entrance to the resort, is a recipe for calamity. Resort guests do leave the confines of the resort to explore our islands and stroll Village Lane. We welcome them, but our small community can't handle more. I worry about families pushing strollers with small children in hand, making their way to the beach along a narrow 2-lane road that serves our post office and a busy public beach parking lot. I know that intensity of use will increase light pollution and blot out our cherished dark skies. How will our island manage the increased stress on infrastructure, including water supply, wastewater treatment, law enforcement, and fire protection?
Do you mind speaking a little louder?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bruce Shea, as the owner of the real property, he owns at South Seas. He has a personal statement, again, regarding intensity, increase in density, building heights, increasing evacuation times. He's clearly concerned about, in case of an emergency.
In the interest of time,
Yes.
would you consider not repeating topics that have already been
Sure.
expressed by prior
Sure.
folks? Because I will read those sheets.
Okay, no problem, thank you. Okay, Robert Seifert lives at South Seas. Dale, and again, this is one I don't want to brutalize. Silgigmuller also lives at South Seas in Land's End. Linda Smith lives or owns property on South Seas. Ruth Soanes does not have an attachment to it. She lives in the village in Sunset Captiva. Donna Spear owns property on South Seas. Lance Steen owns property on Sanibel on West Gulf Drive, as does Mine Steen, or Mina Steen, I guess it is. Peter Stevens owns at Bayside Villas on South Seas. He owns 2 properties there. Mark Swenson owns property as on Plantation Beach Club, as does Martha Swenson. Lynn Thalen owns property on Captiva Drive in the village. She does not have a personal statement. Marguerite Ty Maville owns property on the south end of Captiva Drive, very near Blind Pass Road, and she raises some additional issues. In part, she says the previous owners of the resort, Maristar and Blackstone, realized the tremendous difficulty of having the majority of their employees off-site and decided not to capitalize on the employee housing conversion to other types of units, even though they both bought the properties conceiving that that was a possibility. 141 bedroom units were occupied by employees, of whom very few owned a car, and many were guest workers from foreign countries. The Timbers Group has since demolished those units, as well as the 107 hotel rooms, to be replaced with multiple bedroom units. They present saying that they were reducing the number of units, but they are comparing apples to oranges. The occupant of these planned dwelling units will be larger in number, will have cars, and now employees will have to travel to work. The applicant says they offer to shuttle their employees, but between the time it takes to get to a shuttle stop or time to it takes to pick each one up at their home, no one will want to lose that many hours in the day to commute to a job. Francis Tutt and Simon Tutt own property on South Yachtsman Drive in Sanibel, and their issues have been raised before. Sandra Venefra owns at South Seas and has similar issues. David Wall and Susie Wall are owners of property on South Seas at the Plantation Beach Club. Dennis Walters also owns at Harborview South and owns several properties. Frank Wendell owns on Sanibel on Ladyfinger Lake Road. Those issues have been raised. Linda Wendell lives at the same address, or owns at the same address, and her issues have been raised. The next 2, Kathy Wieseman and Robert Wieseman, live on Captiva Drive in the estate area of Captiva, and their issues have also been raised. Nancy Willis owns at Plantation Beach Club. Austin Wise is a renter who lives on Sanibel, and he had been here for several days but could not return, so he's asked if I could just put this into the record since it's a little bit different than anything that's been said before. He says he's a Sanibel resident, full-time employee. I would like to preface my concerns with this. I grew up vacationing on the island of Sanibel every summer of my life, which planted a seed of wonder and awe of the place at a young age. I always thought about what it would be like to live there, which for the longest time, because of housing costs and lack of rental options, seemed like a dream never to be fulfilled. I pursued a bachelor's degree closest to the island on purpose, and I have now worked on the island for 3 years and currently live there. USAFacts.org says that on average, people in Florida wait 2 years and 5 months for a chance at affordable housing. In my case on Sanibel, I was able to find an affordable housing option thanks to an organization dedicated to providing said housing to full-time employees. They have 67 rental properties available in 9 locations on Sanibel, with 12 of those units being a part of a property designated solely for seniors. I was on the wait list for about a year before getting my current place. If the proposed changes being discussed today were to be approved, local reporting has said that South Seas plans to employ 1,500 employees, almost doubling their number of employees prior to Hurricane Ian. Interestingly enough, South Seas has removed their designated employee housing units to make room for new private condominiums. My concern is that with the influx of new employees, we will see a rise in housing competition, which will likely drive up average rental prices. In addition, those who have waited a considerable amount of time for their chance at affordable housing on the island that they work on and love will likely be delayed further. The proposed changes will bring on a challenge to the availability of affordable housing that these islands and the surrounding areas may never have seen before, and with extreme demand for said housing, a supply that could never be kept up with. Today, that supply stands at slim to none. Thank you. That concludes the packet that I have for you, Madam Hearing Officer. If you would like copies, or if the other parties would like copies of them, I did not bring copies of all of these for everyone today, but I'm happy to take these back and make copies if that is acceptable, or you tell me how you'd like me to proceed.
Give it to me now.
Okay. I'm just going to take my stickies off, if that's okay.
You don't have to worry about the stickers. My assistant will take care of that.
Okay, I should have pulled them off while I was reading, but
Next speaker is Richard Grosso. Oh, I'm not kicking you out. Are you finished? You want to cross-examine? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you, Lisa.
Ms. Reardon, you indicated that CCA owns the Civic Center and the library. Can you tell me how far those facilities are from South Seas?
less than a mile, maybe half to 3/4 of a mile, if that.
And you indicate that you live in the village area. How far is that?
Probably a half a mile, if that.
You read obviously a very long list. Do you know what percentage of the people on the list you read are timeshare people?
No, I don't know.
Do you know what share on the list actually live there year-round?
I do not know that, no.
Do you know how many people on the list own basically rental properties that they rent out?
No, I would not know that.
You went through a description of the island, so you talked about the Gold Coast. So that's from when you enter the island until you hit Twin Waters? Is that what you would call that area?
No, it stops before you get to Twin Waters. When you come across Blind Crest Bridge and you go down Captiva Drive, there's a curve to the left.
Oh, that really sharp one?
Yes, that's where that area ends.
Okay.
You go around that curve, that becomes the Twin Waters stretch.
Okay. And that goes from where to where?
It goes between the two curves,
Okay.
Twin Waters stretch, where you can see the Gulf.
Okay. So where there's only houses on one side of the road then?
Yes, there's only houses on one side.
And then we get to, at the next turn, the village area?
Yes.
And where does that end?
The village goes all the way to the end of the road at Hagerip Beach.
Okay. And then you have South Seas.
South Seas is on the right as you're
Okay.
approaching Hagerip.
But you don't, that's not part of the village area though, right? It's separate.
No, it's South Seas. It's not the village.
Okay. I know there's been a lot of concern expressed about resiliency and height increases.
I'm sorry, I can't.
I'm sorry. I said there has been, you have expressed concern about the height increase, as have others. But the height increase, in large part, was designed to address the change in the starting point for how you measure height, correct?
I'm certainly not an expert on this, but it added another habitable floor. So it increases the amount of living space in the building.
Okay. If I have 3 floors now and I build back 3 floors, I'm not increasing the amount of habitable space, am I?
No,
Okay. And I think you yourself and Mr. Mintz have submitted a building permit to elevate your house to try to address resiliency, so it's a concern for you as well.
flooding is a concern for me, yes.
So your building's going to be elevated to address that,
Hopefully,
Lord willing, I guess.
but we're going to stay underneath the height restrictions that were in place before these ordinances were introduced.
You indicated, and several of the comment cards you read made a point of submitting that the proposed height increase is inconsistent with the LEED plan. Can you tell me, if you know, where in the LEED plan it addresses height?
I do not know that.
Okay. Is it your understanding, if you know, that the new structures that would be built would have to provide the parking required by the LDC?
I would be assuming if I answered that. I don't know that.
Okay,
I believe that might be the case, but I don't know.
okay. No, that's fair. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next witness is Richard Grosso. I'm just going to grab a bottle of water and come right back.
Would it be appropriate to take our afternoon break right now so that I don't get broken up?
Sure, that's fine. Okay,
Thank you.
take a 10-minute break. Would you please come sit in this first chair here?
Can you get the list of speakers? Show
What now?
their list of speakers.
Oh, can I borrow the list back? Okay. Robert.
Good
Thank you,
afternoon.
Madam Hearing Examiner.
Thank you for coming. State your name for the record.
My name is Robert Locker, and I'll have more personal information in what I'm going to share Professionally, I have a PhD in high-temperature materials, glass, ceramic science, worked for Corning Incorporated for 40 years. I have,
So it's Dr. Locker.
please not. Bob would be best. I have 20 juried publications, over 20, and over 30 US and world patents. So I've spent a lot of time in production. I basically develop technology that I need to convince Corning to put into plants. And so it requires that you come up with strong arguments to prove that those investments are worthwhile. So just my own professional background. I have material that I'll be presenting.
Okay, so is this a PowerPoint or are these? Okay. Is it, so one exhibit? One exhibit?
Yes, please. This isn't my bag, Madam Hearing Examiner, so please guide me through. Yes.
It's a friendly crowd here, so don't worry. If it's not your bag, it's okay.
Okay.
We'll help you through. Okay.
So just want to start with an overview that I'm going to be speaking today as an owner. I'll give you background on how I came to Captiva, how I became an owner, why I spend approximately 3 months a year in my unit on Captiva. I'm also the unfortunate president of my homeowners association. You'll see shortly how I became president, mostly because other individuals sold their units and I took over as president. In any case, what I wanted to say is, just as an overview, how can we get the applicant back to the table with us as a president's council to cooperate on the use of the 304 acres that we jointly share, of which they own approximately 120 acres, we own approximately 184 acres. I want to be very clear. I rent my unit through the applicant. I love their employees. I really do. I would rather stay in program, but I'll get to that later. It looks like it won't be possible. But I want to say, we want the applicant to be successful, but within the confines of what they understood when they did their due diligence prior to the purchase of the property. So just as an agenda here, I'm going to talk about the fact that I do want the owners want the applicant to succeed. I'm going to go through some personal information. As president of my homeowners association, I'm proud that I have a good relationship with my owners. Is probably sorry, but they all have my cell number. They know they can call me any time of day or night. I feel a responsibility for them, and frankly, I enjoy it. So the owners have issues with the applicant's zoning request for density and height. we've seen over several days of hearings that the applicant has pushed boundaries, overburdening and damaged interconnectivity. I'm going to share some concerns that my specific homeowners association has. I want to talk about road responsibilities because that's become a somewhat difficult topic amongst HOAs and the applicant in the past few weeks, and I want to share a concern and a question about additional evacuation issues that I think should be considered. So again, as I said, I as an owner, the individuals who rent with the applicant, we want them to be successful, but we want them to be successful within the 272 units that their due diligence showed at the time of purchase was going to be available to them, not the currently requested 628. And, you know, the 912 units is the limit. And I think a sticking point is whether a hotel unit is a dwelling unit. And I don't want to get into that, but it seems like at least one judge in the state of Florida has said, yes, they're the same. But again, that's not up to me. I will say owners wonder what role we are going to have in the long-term future of the applicant when by their own words they've claimed that their new dwellings will become Land's End on steroids units.
What does that mean?
Land's End, well, I figured you might ask me that. Land's End is, I believe, the newest of homeowners association. It's generally one of the more expensive homeowners associations to buy into. So it's generally thought of as amongst the highest end within the property.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So it'll be that plus, is what they're saying.
It's going to be that on steroids.
Okay.
So we wonder, are we going to become the bottom deck on the Titanic? Personally, so I first visited Captiva in 1978 while I was in college. I had read an article that Sanibel and Captiva was the best shelling location in the Western Hemisphere, and it really intrigued me. So my brother at the time lived in Plant City. My younger brother and I drove down, stayed with him, but then we came down here and kind of explored. Really, the first time I stayed on Captiva was in 1983 after I got married. My wife and I stayed in the South Seas Villas, formerly called the Tennis Villas. I remember playing golf with her at the time. The Land's End units were just under construction. They just had piles of pilings getting ready to be driven into the ground. I remember the experience mostly because I was trying to give my wife golf lessons, and she threw her bag at me, angry with the golf lessons. So
Are you still married?
Pardon?
Are you still married?
We're still married. We're still married.
Rocky start.
But it was the last time we played golf together, so I learned quickly. So my history with longer stints here came when I brought my parents here, along with my wife and our infant son at the time. My dad was terminally ill with cancer. He wanted to spend time at a beach location. I had been here. I knew it was very rural, easy to get around, not terrible to get to a hospital. I wouldn't feel that way today, by the way. But we ended up being able to bring him here 3 times before he passed. My mother came with us for years after. Both my children were, I can remember the youngest being in a bouncy literally 6 weeks after he was born. So, and now they come back here, and they're in their 30s. They love it. They fish. They love it. We decided to purchase in 2015, and I became engaged in association renovation activities in 2018. So I ended up joining the HOA board because I recognized there was an opportunity for us to reduce our insurance premiums for flood insurance. Unfortunately, we had a room under the building that was hurting our flood certification standing, and I discovered these buoyant surge vents that were widely available. We had just never used them, had them installed, and it was a big benefit for everybody's individual flood insurance policies. I didn't really want to serve as an officer on the board because I'm a materials scientist. I enjoy, building things. So I really wanted to confine my activities just to the building. Unfortunately, as prices rose, values of the property rose, two of our presidents sold, and I was kind of left holding the bag, but I thought I wanted to see it through because we had just signed a $1.2 million building renovation. And then, of course, two months after I took over, Ian took place. Needless to say, I don't play the lottery. So why did we buy at South Seas? Really because of the historic clustered low density and low building heights. Frankly, that's the view out of my lanai. My last breath, I want it to be there. It's a nature preserve. I watch eagles fight with ospreys, and it's wonderful. If you haven't seen eagles and ospreys fight, you gotta see it. It's amazing. I have an attachment to this property that goes beyond the four walls of my unit. When my son and I came here in 2018, the two of us asked the applicant for garbage bags, and we walked the east side of the road to pick up garbage. We didn't want anything for it. All we wanted was to do something good for the property. My wife hadn't arrived yet. We had some extra time on our hands, and we just did it because it made the place look better. And hopefully this gives you a feeling for what this property means to me, so as I get into my arguments, you'll have a better understanding of where it comes from. Property ownership at South Seas is unusual. I think it's unusual for the applicant. I don't believe that they have many properties. I don't believe maybe they have but one property in Tuscany that has full ownership on property. I believe most of them have interval ownership and hotel accommodations. I don't think they have an appreciation for the fact that the rest of us own these properties as homes. Why do other owners buy at South Seas? They purchase for a variety of reasons. The reasons can be anywhere from investment income to full-time residence. Of my 40 units, 21 are in program with the applicant and 19 are out of program, meaning they rent with another agency. Our HOA has two owners who never rent their unit. And, I think my wife and I are probably going to become the third. Generally, owners bought to enjoy the secluded nature preserve ambiance. Traffic has always been a problem. It's on the best of days, it's a 40-minute ride. Before the hurricanes caused us to have so many contractors on the island, okay? Today, getting on the island can be devastating. I won't even try to repeat what Ms. Reardon said. Absolutely. Madam Hearing Examiner, if you can go out there at that 8:30 in the morning and leave at 3:30 in the afternoon, you'll get an appreciation for what we as homeowners deal with. It's difficult. You've got to love it out there to buy, because it's a miserable experience traveling it. But again, I guess it just speaks to the love that we have for the place because of what it represents to us in our hearts, that we're willing to put up with that. And it's gotten worse. And I want to borrow, I've listened to a lot of discussions from both the applicant and from those that have provided testimony over the last couple of days about evacuation. When I build a process for a plant that's going to cost the plant $200 or $300 million, I can't possibly do that only by looking at best case scenarios. I have to imagine what could go wrong. And so my work involves failure mode analysis, where I'm looking at what could go wrong that could make an evacuation be worse than you intended. Yesterday, my wife and I went to the Pirates-Twins game. We passed 2 medical emergencies along the side of the road, and there were at least 2 other opportunities where we had to pull off. And it's not easy to pull off that road to allow fire trucks and ambulances to come down the middle of the road. Yesterday at 11 a.m., going off the island, we were an hour and a half at 11 a.m. But again, it was because of these issues that arose. So again, generally owners buy there, recognizing the inconvenience of the travel, but not to the magnitude that it's become since the storm. And what the storm has done is it's created problems for the owners because everybody has to rebuild. What's it going to look like if we build another 635 units? 628 units, excuse me. What's it going to look like when we add all those contractors to the travel time? So again, we can talk about evacuation under ideal, best case circumstances. I'm saying you have to look at circumstances where what could go wrong will go wrong. So issues with the applicant zoning request. From the beginning, we as owners and the President's Council have struggled with having a clear understanding of what the applicant's plans have been for the property. It appears like we are exposed to bits of it a little at a time. And that may exactly be the way it's happening for them. I'd be shocked that a company like this wouldn't have had plans, but that's possible. It's possible. The President's Council has viewed the applicant, we always viewed the applicant as partners with us as owners in the HOAs. But that feeling hasn't been reciprocated. I recall being in a meeting where we were told that we don't feel a responsibility to tell you, or certainly not look for your permission on what we're going to do on our property. I'm 80% on the words. I'm not going to say they were exactly that. The President's Council has attempted to work in this collaborative manner, but when the LDC changes became public in June of '23, allegations from the applicant that we were misrepresenting the applicant's actions caused them to walk away and say they were going to not meet with us any further. Unfortunately, Madam Hearing Examiner, what that has caused is an escalation of rhetoric that doesn't need to be. It's caused an escalation of hard feelings that doesn't need to be. And it's hindered what I believe, especially in the post hurricane time period would have been most important, which would have been partnership and collaboration. I want to meet and I want to work with the applicant honestly, truthfully. I want to work with them. I want to make them successful. But come back to the negotiating table and let's talk. Let's work on the things that we can agree upon. And the things that we know we'll have a tough time agreeing upon, we can wait on those. One of the areas that I wanted to highlight is my fear, and I think the fear of my owners, that the applicant has had a demonstrated history of pushing boundaries. I like to say that the best way of predicting future behavior is looking at past actions. I don't want to repeat what we've heard about the Beach House restaurant. We've heard it. So I want to ask for you, Madam Hearing Examiner, to consider what I've already said, what I'm going to say to follow here, and I'm going to ask that you reject the zoning application by the applicant in order for us to figure out how to make this work better for both of us. I took a vote shortly after the LDC changes were made public in June of 23, and the vote was, are you in favor of supporting the applicant's request to increase height and density of buildings? And the vote was 37-3, a supermajority against. Now you might say, June of 23 was a long time ago. Those numbers haven't gotten better, Madam Hearing Examiner. In fact, the three that voted in favor are even waning because of issues that have arisen. I don't know what the votes look like in the other homeowners associations. I don't want to speak for them. But I can just say, I don't think they're vastly different. So pushing the boundaries. We want the applicant to be successful with the 272 approved units, inclusive of hotel rooms, with the resort total of 912 total with 3 units per acre clustered on the 304 acres. Listen, our forefathers, I think, had a lot of wisdom in what they saw, in what they developed and put on paper. And I think it'd be a shame for us to let that escape us. The Beach House restaurant appears to be ignoring long-standing documented limits on access, easement, and vegetation buffers. Owners fear that since that's the first building really that is this far along, what will happen with the others? Madam Hearing Examiner, if you grant them their request for the zoning application, our fear is, my last statement, that they're going to exceed the limits of the written statements because they have shown that they're exceeding the limit of the written statements today and that staff is allowing. Pushing the boundaries. So this is a new building that's going up. I'm going to show here, this is the corner of a structure going up at the water feature. This is a very temperamental mouse, but I'm going to try to drag it down here. You can see the sediment fabric that is staked, and you see just behind the sediment fabric, this is the yellow curve. That's how close the corner of the building is. This is the main road coming into the facility.
This is the Beach House I'm looking at?
No. This is the water park. It's one of the, it's water feature. It is one of the structures that's being erected there, and I just wanted to show a picture of approximately how close it is. It's now a second demonstrated building going in. I want to share a few comments about the applicant's contracts with owners, especially because at the end of last Friday, we heard from an owner, and with all due respect to the owners who spoke on behalf of the applicant last Friday, I, as an owner, believe that the new contracts are going to be negatively affected by the new contract. We, as owners, and the property values will be negatively affected. I received a letter late in 2024 telling us that our contract, the old contract, wouldn't be renewed. We knew it was coming. They told us. I mean, so in fairness, they warned us.
So what does that mean? You're not going to be in their rental program anymore?
What that means is if you don't sign the new rental agreement, then you have to leave. And frankly, Madam Hearing Examiner, I wasn't just joking when I said I love their employees. They've taken wonderful care of my property. They've done a great job in renting it. They've been a wonderful partner. I am saddened by having to draw that relationship to a close. I'm reluctant to sign it because of a couple of stipulations that worry me. The one is there's now a 5-year commitment. I mean, I'm not a young guy. I don't know what the next 5 years is going to bring for me. I don't want to put that property in a position where I can't sell it because it's under contract.
Madam
It's going to make...
Examiner, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second.
Sure.
I appreciate this story, but I'm struggling to understand what the rental contract has to do with the zoning. I mean, I think it's perhaps an issue, but it sounds like it's a private issue, not one.
No, that's a
related.
good question. It's a good question. If I can respond, the issue
I'm
was
just
that as a
objecting for the-
part of the owners coming here last week, they said that they weren't unhappy, that their property values were going to be improved. And so I'm bringing this up just stating that I don't think that it's going to have a general improvement to property value for everybody. And the other issue, in addition to the 5-year commitment, is the fact that we now have to pay a $5,000 a year access to the amenities, even if we rent our units through them. That was never the case. In fact, today, with the letters that were submitted, today was the last day we were told that if we wanted to be a part of the program and not be hit with a $50,000 initiation fee, we had to re-sign by today. And that if they chose to exercise that in the future, that it would be waived if we signed by the 28th. So again, that was my only reason for bringing it up, was because it was a reflection on property value issues. So with regards to the issue of overburdening, our 2 buildings, one of them has 24 units, one of them has 16, for a total of 40. We have 51 parking places inclusive of handicap spots. They must accommodate golf carts as well as cars. We have no separate golf cart parking, as was suggested that there are plenty of around the property. We have no exclusive golf cart parking, just those 51 spots. I believe we have, if not one of, maybe the closest large parking lot to the beach of any of the condominium associations on property. I mean, our parking lot may be only further away than the county's public parking, which is right on the beach, or close to the beach.
But that's off property, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, so I don't know what the rates are there. Many of our owners and guests, they don't come with one vehicle. In fact, in July, when most of our guests, June and July, it has become a huge period of rental for us, primarily for in-state Florida renters who tend to come to Captiva for the seclusion, for the nature preserve, for the low rise, and a lot of those individuals come from the East Coast. So we've enjoyed wonderful rentals in June and July, but with those local people come 2 vehicles, sometimes 3, and then they rent golf carts. And so what once might have seemed like you had plenty of parking with 51 spots and 40 units, it's all of a sudden not plenty of spots. We also, because we are as close to the beach as we are often home to many non-Gulf Beach Villa HOAs who come and park and use our lot for quick access to the beach. We want to be good neighbors to our, the people that are there. But when we look at the prospect of a 210-room hotel that is going to be maybe 1,000 feet from our parking lot, the water park, the northwest corner of the water feature, will be 560 feet from the entrance to our parking lot. It's going to become devastating for us because we're going to have to consider gating, and it's going to lead to inconvenience and challenges for owners and guests to access our buildings. I wanted to show a picture. You can see how close our buildings are to the beach, 2,000 and 2,100 here. We have 21 parking spots against the building. We have another 15 over here up against the pool, and there's 11 spots over here against the tennis court. During high periods of occupancy, often between Christmas and New Year's, I've come out in the morning and I have found this road lined with vehicles. Even with today's population, I've seen that road lined with cars because there weren't enough parking spots in the lot.
And these are people staying in the units, you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. I want to talk about damaged interconnectivity and where I think we could benefit. So garbage is a big issue for us, as you can imagine. How do you remove it? We just talked about the massive problems with driving. You don't want to be inefficient at driving uncompacted garbage off the island. It's got to be compacted. Well, we had what I thought was a commitment from the applicant in September to partner with them, and I went out and purchased 5 of these powder-coated aluminum bins for safe protection of garbage cans and the can liners, and the applicant withdrew the offer. It's forced us to look at having to invest in putting our own trash compactors out there. You can't just have one, because if it breaks down, you've got a problem. You can't have one because if it's filled and there's a delay in the off-island service to come and remove it, you've got to have excess capacity. So it's really 2 compactors you need. And then on top of that, do we really have enough room on our small island to have an us and them? I don't think we do. I think it's all us, and I think we have to figure out a way to do garbage together. That's why I'm calling for, let's get back to the table. Let's find areas that we can benefit each of our guests who are going to come in here. You're earning money off of the guests, we're earning money off of the guests. But if the guests go and throw a garbage bag in my dumpster that I have to use today, and a family of raccoons scurries out, that creates a problem. Road responsibilities. This is the one that I'm afraid is the one that upsets me the most. Gulf Beach Villas owns the road in front of our property. We own the road. And I'm going to show you pictures. We've made investments in that road over the years to put down brick pavers to create a decorative entrance to our property. It was done back in the 90s. It still looks wonderful. What bothers me has been some of the harsh rhetoric about us paying to clean the culverts on either side of the road. Our homeowners insurance paid to clean the culverts. I have to say, I'm so pleased with the insurance that our HOA has. I know there are horror stories for recovery. We have been blessed. We even have landscaping coverage. But our insurance covered the cost for digging out those culverts. Well, why would you want to dig them out? They're filled with sand from the storm surge. It creates a problem with stormwater runoff so that people can't drive on the road safely. And the worst part of it is it causes a loss of communication with the necessary nutrients of the bay to get back into our mangroves on the west side of the road. And many of our mangroves have died. And so we're trying to get those cleaned up so that when you heard from Mr. Evans earlier this morning about them being able to regenerate, we wanted to get those dug out. Well, there have been harsh exchanges, put it back. It's not on your property. I can say that I know that there were probably a couple of culverts that might have been on the applicant's property, truthfully. We did it because we thought we were being good neighbors by cleaning the culvert, making it accessible for stormwater runoff and for necessary nutrients to get to the mangroves. Truthfully, what I'm saying is let's get back to the conversation table so that instead of you saying you weren't informed, let's meet monthly where we can talk about these necessary community activities. Because we share 304 acres, we have to learn to get along. And I think we can. Ironically, I've been told that the applicant is upset with the HOAs because we've taken advantage of them in their cleaning of the roads. Thank you. We appreciate the cleaning of the roads. Let's sit down and talk. We'll cover those costs. Our insurance allows us to be able to take debris removal, sand removal, road repairs. I can't do it for Ian because that was too long ago and most of us have signed off, but Milton's open game. I want to work with you guys. These are just some pictures you can see from the drone shot. This kind of different shading. This is where the brick pavers are. They run back to here. And this is the main road here. You can see kind of, I don't know, they put in this decorative kind of circle here. You can see here our pavers run all the way across the outside of the road where I believe it's the resort's garbage and recycle can and their bench that they've placed there for a convenient trolley stop. But again, we installed those, and it's actually held up well for us. And these are some examples. We've put this orange safety fencing up temporarily so people know where they are. We're looking at getting split rail fences put in so that we create necessary obvious barriers so that people don't accidentally drive off into them. But again, I'm happy to meet with you guys and figure out what do you think is best. Evacuation issues. So I've alluded to them a little bit, and I have to say, I've got to share you're good. If you can get to Jacksonville in a hurricane in 5.5 hours, I left.
Oh, I consider that bad.
Pardon me?
I consider that too long. I try to get there in 5.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. But I can tell you what I ran into when I left the property. On Monday morning, October 7th, I flew down because I couldn't afford to have a second van be destroyed by storm surge. So I flew down to get the van out. I came out to batten the hatches and tie everything down on the property. My younger son's girlfriend flew down with me because he couldn't come down. I need an extra set of hands. So the two of us left the property Monday morning, October the 7th. I couldn't get to just south of Jacksonville for 10 and a half hours because it was bumper to bumper, stop and go. We finally decided you had to leave 75 and cut across the middle of the state. So we cut across around Plant City.
That was your mistake.
Pardon?
That was your mistake. You took the wrong road.
Yeah. Anyways, that wasn't the worst part of it. The worst part of it was, thank God, I thought to fill my gas tank before I went out onto the island Sunday night, because the last gas station I could find that had high test, I was able to top my tank off on my van. But when we left the island on Monday morning at 10:30, I could not find gas in a gas station. And my hopefully future daughter-in-law, she's a PhD in chemical engineering. She was doing everything she could do on her phone to try to find a gas station. Madam Hearing Examiner, we could not find gas between Fort Myers and the east side of Orlando. We were doing calculations to figure out where we'd have to get off the road because we were bumper to bumper. It was 10 miles per gallon. It wasn't 20 like it should have been, because it was just that bad driving. I now have an appreciation for why people risk staying in their homes because of the fear of being caught on the road. I feared that. So I wanted to talk about this 48 to 72 hours, but the gentleman this morning, I'm not even going to talk about it. He blew me away on that. The rapidly intensifying storms, he already commented on. But I do have some information on storm surge from Helene that I want to share, and then a question about should we be modeling for fire evacuation. And the one thing I will say is that while I'm not an expert in modeling per se, I do enough of it in my line of work to know that modeling is based upon data that you have to build the model. And it's good for interpolation, not extrapolation, understanding outside of the boundaries. So again, I worry, are the models that we're using, did they take into account perturbations or upsets in the system that are going to cause it to behave poorly? I thought I heard that pretty well explained this morning, that that's some of the reasons why they have the buffers built in to their timing. This is a picture, this blew me away. So as a scientist, you know, this stuff fascinates me anyways. I'm fascinated with storm surges. Used to think I might want to experience one, but no, I'm good. So the car on the right stalled because of the storm surge in the morning of the 26th of September from Helene. That storm surge came from the east off of the bay. And I don't know what, a foot of water maybe, give or take a couple of inches. That was in the morning. Then it went away. This was the storm surge that came later in the afternoon around 7:30. If I can get this mouse to behave.
About 7:30, we still have a couple hours till high tide. So this might get to the bottom of the house, I don't know. It's definitely changed in a couple of hours.
That's coming from the Gulf?
Yes. I had no idea it would look like a whitewater rafting river. I thought it would come in as a semi-transient wave, that sure, there'd be energy and motion and velocity when it came in, but I didn't think it would keep coming. This was video that I went out on property. It's Beach Home 29. I don't know who the individuals were that were in the home, but again, thank you for taking that video because I'll never stay, for a storm surge. I've got enough to have seen that. I apologize for the pixelated nature. I do have a copy of that I downloaded onto the desktop, Madam Examiner, if you'd like to review it. So fire is an issue that I brought up at the Board of County Commissioners review before the vote. It was actually not quite a month after. I want to say it was September 5th, 23. Maybe September 7th, 23, was the Board of County Commissioners vote on the LDC change. I brought up my concerns at that meeting about fire and the parallels with Lahaina and the fact that they suffered the wildfires they did for reasons that aren't entirely dissimilar to the ones we could have on Sanibel and Captiva. The data that makes me most heartbroken, this is Associated Press data, not mine. 60% of the people were found either 60% of the 102 people who died were found either in or near next to their vehicles, trying to flee the fire. And so I put this little table together because I'm a geek and I'm a scientist and I love this kind of stuff, right? So I looked at the populations. Lahaina's bigger by 2, twice the population. Their dry season's a month longer, 7 months than our 6 month. They get about 25% of the rainfall in their dry season that we get. So by comparison, our dry seasons are more wet, but I caution that's because when we get rain here, it's like Tuesday night when we got 2.5 inches or something crazy. But the other thing was kind of the parallels in wind speeds. And what I wanted to point out was that our dry season coincides with our peak tourist season in February, March, April. And that's when we're going to have the greatest congestion, getting people off the island, God forbid. And I'll go back to saying when you're in a rebuild mode, again, this is not normal. As scientists, we would say this is non-equilibrium. This is not something we would expect to have all these contractors out here amongst the guests, amongst the owners. So that just exacerbates everything. These are some pictures that I just took over the weekend of the dying palmettos and some of the other dead standing timber alongside the road. And I know Sanibel is doing a yeoman's effort trying to get this stuff cleaned out. But as recently as within the last month, we have had a fire as a result of a downed power line that took power out to Captiva and caused a fire. Thank goodness it didn't spread. So again, I use my experience in trying to, I'm not going to analyze for everything going normally. I need to analyze for when something goes off the rails, because it will. So in conclusion, we would like the owners to succeed. We deeply want them to succeed. I want to partner with them. I want to return to a healthy conversation with them. But I want them to understand that they understood the boundaries when they did their due diligence of 272 units and the 912 total allowed. We would like them to stay within that. Owners have invested in these homes for the preserve-like low-density environment. The applicant has voluntarily discontinued communications with the President's Council. I'm just going on record and being public today. Come on back. No hard feelings. Let's get this done. Let's figure out how to make life better for all of us. The owner's request rather, that the applicant zoning request be denied. And we request they be denied because of what we fear has been a history of pushing boundaries and staff permitting. And lastly, I request that there be additional considerations made to model and look at these perturbation issues, fires, broken down vehicles with more electric vehicles on the road, a vehicle that, loses charge, who knows? So I'm asking, could we also consider what the issues of fire may be and how they affect evacuation? Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner, for allowing me to present today. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Neil, do you want
Yes,
to
I do.
cross-examine
Thank
this
you.
witness?
Can I call you Bob? Is that okay?
I would love it.
Bob, are you aware of the fact that the president's calls have been replaced with monthly calls that include all the owners?
So I'm going to tell you, I'm an old guy, number one, and if it wasn't obvious. And number two, I now understand how everybody else gets up here, and back there I can hear you wonderfully. Up here it really is rough. I don't know what there is, but
I understand the sound in here is atrocious, so I agree with you. Can you hear me now?
I might come over there.
Do you
But
want
go ahead.
Why don't you stand by the podium? Maybe if you
There's a
keep each other's
microphone there, so if you
mouth.
stand by the podium.
I like breaking rules. I never follow.
Okay. So,
Am I okay to break this rule? Can I come over?
as long as you
Can you hear him?
talk into that microphone.
Nobody has ever accused me of having a soft voice. But you can tell me.
Okay, so Bob, are you aware of the fact that the monthly president's calls have been replaced by a monthly call with all the owners?
I am aware.
So are you suggesting that they should stop having calls with all the owners?
No, not at all. I'm suggesting let's have a different dialogue about community-based issues that are problematic, that the owners are going to feel and suffer from, that we as stewards of the property can help resolve.
Okay. You talked about the rental contract and not wanting to pay the funds or the fee, the $5,000 a month?
No, it's $5,000 a year.
Okay, sorry.
I'm nervous about it.
Okay.
I'm not.
Are you suggesting that they should build all new amenities and let you and your residents use them for free?
That's the way it was in the past.
That may be, but if you don't have a right to use the property, are you suggesting they should have to let you use it for free?
I don't want to tell them how to manage their business or spend their money. I understand they're expensive investments. I'm just saying it's a deviation from the way it was done in the past, where as a part of your rental agreement, the use and access to the amenities was included. But I'm also going to admit, what they're building is much better than what was there before.
Okay.
I will agree.
Okay.
Much more expensive, much more elaborate.
So are you aware of the fact that when you go to get a development order, you have to be able to establish that there's sufficient fire flows in your hydrants?
I'm a scientist, not a building
Okay,
kind of guy, so no.
okay.
But I would assume that the people who plan communities think those things through.
They do. And are you, I know you're a scientist, but are you aware of the fact that the new structures would have to be sprinklered?
I was. In fact, I knew that the harbor side was sprinkling. In fact, there are rumors that the sprinklers contributed heavily to the flooding when they broke or something. I don't know.
You showed a picture of a very pretty road with paver blocks. What road is that? It wasn't clear to me what road that was.
That's the main road that connects the north and south of the property.
Okay, so you're saying part of that road has paver blocks?
Yeah, in front of our driveway, correct.
Okay, so does it,
It's about half of what I think we own, maybe a little less than half.
okay. And are you saying or suggesting that the owners have not done any maintenance on the road?
No, 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 I'm saying quite the opposite, that we installed those, they've done wonderfully. What I'm saying is, I've heard conversations that we clean the roads, that the applicant cleans the roads. I'm just saying, let's sit down and talk, because our HOA insurance, in fact, I met with the adjustment team on Tuesday. I posed a question to them. They'd be interested in fielding invoices for those things.
Okay, so that's a discussion that you guys should have outside of here.
We're going to talk.
Okay.
I want to get you guys a marriage counselor. I'm going to get you guys a marriage counselor.
That might work.
Okay, so if I got it right, you have 40 units and 51 parking spaces.
Correct.
I got it right. Do you restrict your parking to only your residents?
No, not at the moment.
Do you have a policy that indicates to renters how many cars they can bring?
Not at the moment.
I mean, in other words, I've gone to Airbnbs and they will tell you,
I know.
okay.
Yep, I have as well. I'm familiar. You know, so we don't want to be restrictive. We want to create opportunities that those extreme conditions can be dealt with. The families that bring 3 vehicles, you know, they're going to happen. The question is when they happen at too high a number, that's when negative things happen.
Okay, so the current regulatory scheme doesn't require structures to provide parking per the LTC. If this zoning is approved, they will have to meet the LTC for any new buildings that they build. So do you have an objection to them meeting the county's parking requirements?
I am concerned about where the location of those parking locations would be. I'm concerned that it doesn't appear to me that there's extensive parking at the water feature. I'm concerned that the entrance to our driveway, as well as Beach Villas 3 and Sunset Beach Villas, I'm concerned that all 3 of our parking lots, mine is the most distant at 560 feet. Theirs is literally across the street. I'm concerned what are their parking lots going to have to handle. It's going to be a great feature. Let's just be honest. It's going to be great. It's going to be used. And I can imagine if I was young enough and had a 14-year-old who wanted, I'm going to go to the beach, and you go to the water park, and guess what? We're in between.
And your future daughter-in-law is going to want to go to the water park.
Yeah, I've got a grand horse, not a grandchild. I'm sorry.
So, okay, so you raised the concern about garbage. So are you suggesting that they should process your garbage for free?
No. In fact, I believe it was like $44,000. And listen, if they would say yes, I'd get down on my knees right now and beg them for it.
Ooh, that makes me a little nervous, though. You can wait till your meeting.
Their service is way better than what I would get from anybody else.
Okay, after the storms, if you know, you might not have been here, did the owners use their equipment to clean the roads and clean the sand, both inside and outside the resort? If you know, if you don't, that's fine.
My history dates to 2015.
The last 3 hurricanes.
Pardon me?
The last 3 hurricanes. We can just go with that.
Well, okay, so the last 3 hurricanes, these guys did it all.
Okay. That's really
And
where I
I'm
was
here
trying
to
to...
say today they didn't need to, and let's figure out a way so you don't have to do it all.
Okay. So they're not really as bad a guys as you made it sound then?
Pardon me?
So they're not really as bad a guys as you sort of made it sound?
I think I said I love their staff. I think I went on record saying
Okay.
I love their staff. I even took presents to Emily the day she left. We were so heartbroken to have her leave.
Okay, so you did make reference to the beach access, and it's my understanding the beach access available to those owner in government lots 1 and 3. Is your association in government lots 1 and 3?
You get me?
Okay.
I don't know a survey map to the extent that I'm sure you do.
Okay. So it won't surprise you if I tell you, no, you don't have a legal right to use it?
I don't know what
Okay.
lots 1 and 3 are. I'm speaking just to my lot.
Okay.
I'm just speaking to my lot.
Is this dialogue helpful to me for the decision I need to make on this case?
Well, the whole discussion, I don't
I'm
know.
having trouble following the thread.
Well, they spent a lot of time talking about a lot of things that I objected to initially that I thought were outside the scope of the zoning. But having raised them, I just want to make it clear that those issues can and will be addressed outside the scope of these proceedings. So with the caution from the hearing examiner, I'll cease asking questions.
Me for wine after the hearing.
I gave you, no, I didn't give you a copy. I'm so sorry. No, you're fine. I wish you would have reminded me. I'm sorry. It's okay.
Who is next? Is it Jeff Powell? If you're still here, Jeff Powell, please come forward.
That's not mine.
Yes. This exhibit is your statement that you're going to put into the record? Okay. This will be Powell Exhibit 1. You may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Jeff Powell. I'm the fire chief with the Captiva Island Fire Control District. Consistent with the June 13th, 2023 letter that was sent to the Lee County Board of Commissioners, I am not here to speak in support or opposition to this rezoning application. Rather, I'm here to address the impacts the proposed rezoning will have on our ability to serve our residents of the island and visitors to the resort. If the rezoning is approved, the fire district will be adversely impacted due to the proposed changes to building heights. The fire district will not have the sufficient ground ladders or fire flows to provide response to upper floors of a building within the resort. The fire district recognizes that other buildings, including residential homes, are being elevated within the district due to the recent hurricanes. However, the intensity of hotel space and timeshares creates a larger life safety and property risk for the visitors to the resort. In addition to the building being lost if a fire occurs due to the inability to suppress fire on upper floors, lives may be lost. An increase in units due to the approval of the rezoning may also result in the need for the fire district to increase staffing. As Captiva Island becomes more popular as a tourist destination, the fire district directly correlates that to an expected increase in call volume based off previous experiences on the island. Although the fire district recognizes that increased property tax revenue associated with this rezoning may eventually help to offset this impact to staffing, there is still a concern of the fire district as an increase in staff will also burden our ability to adequately house them. The fire district contacted the developer to discuss conditions that we desired to be included within the rezoning to address the impacts to the fire district. Specific conditions related to fire service impacts have been previously included in other rezonings within Lee County, i.e. zoning -20-010, the Paradise Isles community in North Fort Myers. And we feel that given the size, scope, and tremendous impact to the island of this particular rezoning application, that certain conditions be included in the application to address the impacts to the fire district. The fire district and the developer have discussed the impacts to the fire district if the property is rezoned. As a result, the district and the developer have negotiated the following conditions that we request be included in the rezoning conditions. Number one, within 30 days of the rezoning being final, the developer must enter into an agreement with the Captiva Island Fire Control District to address fire protection services to the property through the partial funding, $644,000, for a ladder truck. The funds will be used to offset the additional cost to purchase a ladder truck needed to serve the property that will be constructed consistent with the current FEMA and standard building code elevation requirements. The developer must provide this contribution through the prepayment of fire impact fees, with the balance provided as a cash contribution. All fire impact fees paid by the developer within the development from January of 2025 until the prepayment of fees for the acquisition of the ladder truck will be deducted from the $644,000 partial payment for the ladder. Pursuant to Section 2-395, subsection A1, LDC, the fire department has determined that this capital improvement is a creditable contribution, and fire impact fee credits in the amount of the partial payment for the ladder truck will be creditable, and said credits will be transferable. Number two, the developer shall provide Captiva Island Fire Control District with adequate indoor building space on the northern end of the property for the Captiva Island Fire Control District to store fire and rescue equipment and an apparatus. The developer has the authority to change the location of the designated indoor building space within the property in consultation with the Captiva Island Fire Control District. By prepaying impact fees and making a cash contribution in an amount that equals the cost differential between a replacement apparatus, fire engine, and a new ladder truck, the developer is addressing the rezoning impacts to the fire district and its ability to provide fire service to taller buildings. This contribution allows the fire district to properly respond to emergencies, especially fires and rescues associated with the taller proposed hotels and timeshares within the property. The developer has already agreed to the assignment of a boat slip to the fire district as a proposed condition of the rezoning. By allowing the fire district to have indoor building space on the northern end of the property, the fire district will be able to respond more effectively to emergencies, especially following a hurricane. Currently, there could be a delay in responding to the northern end of the property following a hurricane due to its location. This condition allows the fire district to strategically store equipment and apparatus, which will increase the fire district's ability to respond to emergencies in a timelier fashion. As we know, every minute counts following an emergency. This is a vital since the rezoning will allow for more intense development. The proposed conditions address the fire district's concern with the rezoning and will result in lives and property being saved. Finally, there may be some residents who wish the fire district would oppose this rezoning. However, as with any other new development or county rezoning within the boundaries of the fire district does not and cannot take a position on these requests. Rather, the fire district evaluates the impacts to its ability to provide services and adjusts its staffing and resources to meet those needs. With this rezoning, the fire district identified impacts that would adversely affect our ability to provide fire and emergency services. We have worked with the developer to address the impacts through the proposed rezoning conditions. Our ultimate goal is to ensure that the life safety of our citizens and visitors is protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil, do you want to cross-examine this witness?
I don't have any questions for the fire chief. I have comments, but I'll make those on rebuttal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're a couple of minutes before 4, so I'm going to conclude for the day. We resume on March 20 in this room at 9 a.m. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Hopefully, I'll see you on March 20.